So what we're going to get into now is a bit quite scientific, so I'll need you to walk with me. So we've been introducing the concept of reality and how it's a different version for each person. So let's go back into the science of the brain to see how that actually happens. So as soon as we are born, our brain starts to create pathways and frameworks in the mind. So this is done through our senses, your touch, your feel, your taste. It's done through our social, cultural upbringing, our socialization. So this happens so the brain is able to manage all these bits of information that comes in every minute. So what it does, it forms a pattern and pathways which are sort of repetitive so that we can able to structure information we receive all the time. So I'm from Emakaya, the rurals. So there you'll find that there are a lot of pathways that aren't sort of official pathways that are made by a grader or machinery. So people tend to just create their own pathways. And how those pathways are created is that you have people walking the same route every time. And you start seeing the grass parting, and what happens? A new path is created. So if you think of that, that is how these pathways are created in our minds, and our neural pathways and frameworks are created, where the same experiences that we practice as we grow up, as we're being taught things in our families, in our religion, in our cultures, it creates a framework. Are you with me? Yeah. So this framework, you can call it a schema, which is, like I said, it helps us structure all this information that comes in daily or every minute. And what happens is, we always start absorbing the information that fits in to these pathways. Because now, we've been walking and created this path, so we don't want to start creating another path, because the path is there. So then in any incident, in any event, we start picking out and filtering what is comfortable with the path that the brain has created. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if in any event, incident, interaction, we only pick out the stuff that is comfortable and within the neural framework we've created, why is that dangerous, do you think?
So maybe our minds will not really create reality that we see, but it will be something that is at the back of our minds.
Mm-hmm. So if you think about it, in an incident, in an event, if we pick out the things that are comfortable with us, surely we lose a lot of facts or a lot of things that are actually what happened. So then that leads to what? Assumptions, misunderstanding, conflicts, right?
Yeah.
Because in a situation we pick out what's comfortable. So what's fortunate about these neural pathways and these frameworks is that we can deviate from the path
That is known.
that is known. And that takes us challenging ourselves in those incidents to not only filter what's comfortable and charge a new path, break that framework and create a new path. And also in the rules you find that another path starts deviating to another household. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So let's get into then reality. How this ties in with the concept of reality. So we're going to discuss reality in terms of two versions. There's one that's with the capital R for the sake of this, versus reality with the small r. One with the capital R and one with the small r. So with this we are saying, with the capital R, that's reality we can see that is existing and we can measure mathematically, or it's what we perceive as reality. So it's just structure and has no influence. And the reality with a small r, we can look at it as what we've consumed and then interpreted in our minds and then taken out as what we perceive is a reality of experience. So let's use a scenario. Two people are walking through a cemetery at night. It's dead quiet. Get it? So two people are walking in the cemetery at night. It's dead quiet. One believes in ghosts and one doesn't. They suddenly hear a strange sound. Who do you think is going to run away?
The one who believes in ghosts for me.
The one who believes in ghosts. So if we break down that scenario in terms of the reality with the capital R, we can measure night or the dark. We can say that the earth rotates around the sun on its axis and that makes night and day. We can measure sound. That's the reality that's happening, right? We can, so when I say the reality, that's what is there. We can agree on is there.
Yeah.
But then the experience for the different people is different. One who doesn't believe in ghosts, one who hasn't had that neural pathway created from other socialization when they've never seen a ghost before, right? Because of their socialization and whatever, they believe there might be a ghost. Then the experience is different. Then the reality of that situation is different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
So, if we go then to the, if I can just illustrate this. Who smoked benzene when they're young?
Me, I did. Benzene, petrol, paraffin, name them all.
And what happens when you smoke benzene? You start to hallucinate.
Yes.
So I didn't smoke it. I used to watch my friends smoke it and laugh at what they do when they see things that aren't there, right? So what they see when they're hallucinating is their reality. So we can say that hallucination is a form of reality. But what form of reality is that it's uncontrolled. You've taken these hallucinogens in this case, and your mind is doing whatever it wants without you controlling it or using prior frameworks or using prior experience to filter and narrow down this information. Whereas if you weren't under these hallucinogens, you would be having a controlled hallucination. So if we are saying that when we are experiencing life, and we can agree that we are hallucinating, only that it's controlled, we can say that that's our reality. It's actually a hallucination, but it's controlled. And the hallucination, it's an uncontrolled reality. So to depict this, we can say this is my picture of a brain, right? Our big R sort of is what comes in. Comes in. So what we are saying is that it doesn't end there, because what happens here is we go back to our social norms, our socialization, our prior experience, and then we create the reality. Does that make sense? So this is very important, that reality we're not passive to our reality. It comes in and we create it and we see what we see when we've done this whole process with this prior experience, socialization, the practice we've done in terms of emotions, how we handle situations, and then it creates a reality. And that's when we pick out the things that fit into this, and then we see what we see.
And that becomes a reality.
That becomes reality. which then leads to assumptions and all of that. And then we can say that assumption is what? Is a constructed reality. So how can we remedy not making those assumptions or take control of this situation?
I think we need to live from here. For me, what I'm taking out from controlled hallucination, where I'm aware of my thoughts. You used the example of someone who is maybe under the influence of any substance, then that's like, it's uncontrolled, and that becomes your reality. And also going back to where you started with the pathways that are created maybe in Makaya, that we that's at the end might not be controlled, because that's reality which is already there. All you do, you just follow. But then if you are here, you make decisions based on what you see, and you are aware of your decisions, and you can also have facts about what's going on. And two gentlemen who are in the graveyard as well can, before you act, let me talk about what's going on. Where am I? This sound, where does it come from? Is it a ghost? Or is it just sound from a dog? And then I think that's how we can
Spot on. It's just a matter of taking back and saying, how do I know this?
Yeah.
Before you act on it. You see someone acting differently towards you, you go back to your neural pathways, you start remembering how someone acted similarly, and you start thinking, oh, there's this agenda, there's this agenda. If you go back and ask yourself, how do I know this? Then you go back to what you said, where you go back and dissect what you think you know.
Yeah.
So quickly,